Have you ever heard a knock at your door long after midnight, but when you check, no one's there? What if I told you that sometimes someone is there, just not someone who's supposed to be alive? Tonight's story is about a neighbor who died years ago, yet still visits every night, not to haunt, not to terrify, but to remind us that some people never really leave. By the time you finish the story, you might start listening a little more carefully to the sounds outside your home after dark. Let's begin. This story starts with a man named Evan, an introverted artist looking for a quiet place to reset his life. He moved into a small rented house on Belridge Lane, a narrow street where the porch lights flicker and the cold air settles deep into the wood of every home. On his first evening there, as he carried boxes inside, he saw an old man standing in the yard next door, tall, thin, wearing a faded brown coat that hung awkwardly from his shoulders. The old man raised a hand in a slow, polite wave. Evan waved back, thinking nothing of it. But that night, well after midnight, Evan heard footsteps outside. Slow, steady steps circling the house. He tried to convince himself it was an animal, or the house settling, or just his imagination. He would learn soon enough that it wasn't. A few days later, Evan stepped out to check his mail. The man in the brown coat was standing at the end of his driveway, staring at the house as if trying to recall something forgotten. Evan greeted him. The old man nodded but didn't smile. When he spoke, his voice sounded rough, like he hadn't used it in years. "Cold night," the man said. Evan replied, but the man just kept staring at the house. Then he asked a strange question. "Do you sleep well in there?" Evan hesitated. Yeah, I sleep fine." The old man's expression shifted, not to a smile, but something like concern. "Just keep the blinds closed," he whispered. Before Evan could respond, the man turned and shuffled behind the fence. That night, Evan kept the blinds closed, not because he believed the warning, but because it felt like advice you didn't ignore. At exactly 2:17 a.m., he woke to the sound of footsteps again, slow, deliberate, circling the house. They stopped right beneath his bedroom window. The footsteps didn't stop. They became routine. Midnight, then 12:40, then 1:15. Always slow, always steady, always outside. One night, Evan finally gathered the courage to peek out through the blinds, breaking the old man's only rule. He saw him, the neighbor, the man in the brown coat, standing perfectly still in the yard, staring directly at the window. But when Evan blinked, the man was gone. Not walking away, simply gone. The next morning, Evan found footprints in the wet grass, large, deep prints that circled the house and stopped just beneath his bedroom window. He followed them to the fence separating his yard from the neighbor's. Beyond it, the old man's house stood silent and abandoned. Overgrown grass, boarded windows, a rusted padlock on the front door. It didn't look lived in at all. As Evan stared there, Mrs. Hawthorne from across the street hurried toward him. "You stay away from that house," she warned. Evan tried to explain. "But my neighbor," she said. There is no neighbor. Inside her home, over a cup of tea, she told him the truth. The house next door had belonged to a man named Arthur Bell, a quiet man who always wore a brown coat. He died in his yard 10 years ago. No one discovered the body for 3 days. Since then, the house remained empty, but new tenants, like Evan, reported footsteps, knocks, and conversations with a thin, polite man in a brown coat. "Arthur doesn't know he's gone," she whispered. "He just checks on the neighbors, the way he always did." Evan tried to laugh it off, but deep down, something cold settled inside him. What did Arthur want from him? The answer came a few nights later. The sounds began as knocking, not on the doors, on the walls. 3 taps, slow, measured. The knocking traveled along the wall toward his bedroom window. Then came the footsteps outside, this time faster, urgent, almost frantic. Evan approached the window slowly and lifted the blind a few inches. Arthur's face was inches away on the other side of the glass, pale, eyes wide with fear, his breath fogging the window. He whispered one word: run. Evan stumbled backward. Why run? From what? Then he heard it. The sound inside the house. A dragging, scraping noise coming from the hallway. Something was in there with him. He grabbed his phone and bolted out the back door, sprinting barefoot into the night until he reached the street. From there, he turned back toward the house. Arthur stood in the yard, facing the house now, as though trying to protect Evan from whatever was inside. For the first time, Evan understood Arthur wasn't haunting him. He was warning him. The next morning, Evan broke his lease and left Belridge Lane forever. Animal control later found evidence of a large raccoon infestation. Scratches, tunnels, nests in the walls and attic. But raccoons didn't explain the conversations, the warnings, the face at the window. As Evan drove away for the last time, he checked the rearview mirror. Arthur stood at the fence, giving the same slow, polite wave as the day they met. Only this time, Evan didn't wave back. Some neighbors never stop checking on you, even after death, and some shadows outside your window aren't as empty as you hope. If you want more stories that keep you up at night, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more horror and mystery tales. And tell me, what would you do if your dead neighbor warned you to run? Sleep well, if you can.